Thanks for joining. We've got a really lovely mix of our clients, a few folks that are looking at either adding some additional modules from what we do, thinking about AP automation, etc. And we've got a really interesting story, and not your usual kind of stories like, yeah, everything went well and we have these great KPIs, but actually how things happen in the real world, which, you know, it's windy and you get lost in the forest and you have to find your way out. So we've got Ashley Matadine from Liberty London in his wonderful, colorful shirt, who will be talking about the project that we had over the last year.
Cool.
Ashley?
Yep. Thanks very much, Dimitri. Afternoon, everyone. As Dimitri mentioned, my name is Ashley Matadine. I'm part of the IT business change team at Liberty, so not necessarily part of finance, but part of the project team and acted as the product owner, agile term for those of you in project management, that helped deliver accounts payable automation. I've been at Liberty for 5 years now, and this idea of accounts payable automation is something that's always kind of been in the background of people's minds. It's something people were talking about from the day I started that they wanted to do. And it's taken up until last year, in fact, for us to actually get on board with a supplier, Medius, and get the process up and running. For those of you that don't know, Liberty London, we're a retail department just off of Regent Street, so 15 minutes down the road from where we are today. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all in store later on to purchase some, as Dimitri pointed out already, some lovely Liberty fabrics, one of which I'm modelling right now. Or if not, the other thing that we're quite big on is beauty and just fashion in general. And yeah, as Dimitri mentioned, today we're going to talk about our warts and all story to do with our implementation of the Medius APA platform. There will be time at the end, I guess, for questions, but I mean, feel free. I know Dimitri's going to jump in at some point to talk about some of the slides as well. If you do have any burning questions, feel free to interrupt if you feel so. Okay, so what was the reason for us to look to do accounts payable automation in the first place? We were running a lot of manual processes across 2 different ERPs and 3 business entities. So we use, as one of our ERPs, AX Dynamics 2012. That's for our main retail business, and that's actually where the bulk of our invoices come from. But then we've got 2 other Liberty businesses. We've got the fabrics business and our wholesale business, both of which are more kind of manufacturing-led, but still deal with both PO and non-PO invoices. And what you can see there, again, is the kind of split where we call out trade invoices. Those are mostly to do with the stock that we're selling. The majority of those are PO-based, and anything that's not PO-based, we class as overheads or expenses. So those are potentially our contracted invoices, mostly things that come through to our finance teams without a purchase order number on there. Now, for purchase order-based invoices, generally the process, although manual, isn't too bad. You're talking about 3 to 5 minutes to manually process a single invoice. Of course, that's when there's a PO number we can actually find on the document itself, and there's no deviations. Everything matches. We're talking header level, line level, etc. However, invoices that do have some form of deviation or variance on them could potentially take weeks to resolve, often without very much visibility of what the issue is, who's got it, how long is it going to take to fix, all the whilst we've got suppliers breathing down our necks asking us, when are we going to get paid? And that's just purchase order-based invoices. For non-PO-based invoices, so the overheads we mentioned previously, we've got a very much more manual process where the AP team are effectively printing each invoice that comes in, stamping it with the date to prove when we received it, stacking them up, putting them in pigeonholes, mailboxes, and that's just for the invoices that come to our head office. Obviously, this then gets exasperated when you're trying to deal with invoices and users and approvers across multiple physical locations. This, again, was kind of pre-pandemic. So during the time when everyone was working from home, this process, again, made even more difficult. And then at the end of the process, these were being manually posted via AX or M3. So you had dedicated members of the AP team, split by ERP and business unit, dealing with these invoices. And what did that mean? As mentioned previously, we had poor visibility of just the entire approval process for these overhead-based invoices. Documents were constantly getting lost. You're talking about physical paper that's moving throughout the business. Literally, someone from finance would be going around either leaving stuff in pigeonholes or on people's desks. And again, when you start moving to a hot desk environment, that gets even more tricky to find where's my physical piece of paper gone. It was leading to a lot of duplication in work where we might not have controlled necessarily in a clever way which documents have been printed, which have been signed off. Sometimes you have multiple of the same document going around the business, and then the supplier would inevitably send you a further document. It's just difficult to track stuff. Even though you've got some of this logged within the ERP, you're still dealing with physical documents, physical paper-based invoices. And the end result, again, this leads to delays in paying our suppliers, us not being able to commit to the payment terms, and in a lot of cases not being able to take advantage of any trade discounts we'd be able to get for early payments, for example. So once we decided we wanted to move ahead with Medius and Medius APA, we put together a handful of Liberty and Medius resources. Again, this was done during pandemic, so as much as we would have loved to all be in the same room to kind of flesh out the solution design and the actual implementation, it was all done remotely, mostly from our friends at Medius based in Europe, and then our team based in the UK. One of the points that we mentioned on this slide here was the fact that we also managed to complete this project actually without a properly direct or specific subject matter expert, which sounds crazy. I myself have a bit of a background in AP automation anyway. I was previously at Harrods and we put in a similar system which no longer exists. They since went out of business, but I'm sure Harrods themselves are potentially looking at media solutions at the moment as well, so fingers crossed for you guys. But it kind of plays the fact that the team at Medius made things so easy in terms of getting this implementation done. They came on board with asking all the right questions. One thing I found as product owner for this project, in dealing with, again, quite a new team at Liberty, in fact, in terms of the AP side of things, where they weren't always 100% sure not only necessarily what they wanted, but how necessarily things work today. Some of the knowledge they had was very insular and very specific to their roles. We struggled a little bit with kind of the bigger picture thinking, but that again was something Medius helped us kind of discover as we went throughout the project. We purposefully left our integrations with our two ERPs standard. That's to say we didn't use any custom code for two reasons really. We wanted to kind of get this live as quickly as possible and as simply as possible. It also meant that we were able to leverage the kind of accounts processing rules we already had set up in our ERPs, so we didn't have to set up or configure too much in terms of Medius. All the approval rules, the coding string rules, etc., taken directly from either AX or M3 in those cases. We rolled out to a pilot group to start with, which was our IT department. Again, just made sense. I'm part of IT. it was easy for me to kind of speak to other members of the team and get them on board with the process, work out some of the kinks as we were building it, and end up with a process that made sense for everyone. Was also responsible for the user training and change management processes, which again were key to the new structured processes we were putting in place with Medius. One thing we'd found in speaking to the users beforehand was there wasn't a lot of standardization around how we were doing anything at Liberty. It was largely invoices come in, let's just try get these approved as quickly as possible. We don't necessarily know who needs to sign it, we just need someone of the right kind of grade in the business to put their stamp on this and get things paid. We also built a purpose-built SharePoint site as part of the project, just to put all of our kind of internal process documentation for the system on there. Medius themselves do a really good job of providing a success portal, which has all the information you guys need. Generally, that's more for the systems admins or the owners of the business to do the tweaking. But we, again, internally, just put some very quick one-pagers, animations, videos, just to show users what they needed to do. And then the results. From our first quarter, which was about a year ago now, we initially achieved a 79% touchless rate, which was great, and a cycle time of less than 5 days, whereas previously we were looking more around kind of 2 weeks to get anything approved. Just again, because there was no system or process. There was a massive reduction in manual intervention through automation. Gone were the days of walking pieces of paper around the office. We standardized interfaces across the 2 ERPs. That is to say, we no longer necessarily needed specialism in AX or M3 from the AP side of things. Now everything is managed through APA. The users, both AP and the business users, just need to get used to that one kind of UX, that Medius interface, and everything goes through the same process regardless of who you're paying or what you're paying. We had improved visibility of the approvals through the reporting within Medius and the dashboarding elements, some of which you'll see a little bit later on. We were able to track KPIs for once, which we'd never been able to do properly before. We'd also, as part of our implementation, implemented the procurement module with an aim to actually reduce the amount of expense invoices or non-PO invoices that we were putting through our processes. We'll talk about this a little bit later on, but just wanted to mention that because again, that's been a massive game changer for us at Liberty, whereby we're using the procurement engine to generate the POs directly in Medius, generate a Medius-based PO number, and then do invoice matching off of that. So slowly doing away with non-PO invoices. But, however, as time goes on, and I'll hand over to Dimitri in a moment, we could slowly see things weren't quite going the way we'd hoped. Do you want to take over?
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Yeah, so we met in November of the previous year and looked at the numbers, and things were looking good. Congratulated Ashley. We went for lunch, Dishoom, Carnaby Street. And then I'm tracking the numbers, and we try to be very proactive about these things. I start to see some worrying trends. So the number of days to process an invoice suddenly was ballooning up from 5 or 6 up to 30, and the touchless rate, which is that graphic you see going down, is coming way down. So we got together for a business lunch and started to really analyze this and try to analyze the root cause to understand what's happening with some of this. And Ashley will explain some of the dashboards and things that exist in the tool for analyzing this, but the key thing for us was to very quickly respond to this, understand through the various analytics that exist within Medius APA Is it the suppliers? Is it certain users? Is it the system that's breaking down? What has caused this sudden change in what was really quite a successful deployment, and how do we adjust to that? So next, you're going to see some of the KPIs and dashboards I think are actually quite critical to running any kind of successful project. It's one thing to have a good touchless rate and have a few good metrics like that, but really you need to have the tools to be able to analyze when things don't go right, what are the root causes of bottlenecks.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Dimitri. Yes, I guess one other point to mention on this slide before we move on was the fact that our AP team was so happy with finally getting an automation platform, reducing the number of kind of manual interventions they needed to make. They weren't really keeping as close an eye on this. So, by the time we kind of noticed it, it was not too late, obviously, because we put some plans together to tackle this. But all credit to, again, Dimitri and the team who flagged this up as well with us to say, okay, we know there's problems. Do you know the scale of the problem? And they helped us out with the dashboarding and KPIs within the system to help us, put together more of a business case to the business to say, okay, we need to look at how we tackle this. Okay, so here are some actual examples of some of the dashboards and metrics, things we were measuring. These are, I think, fairly recent stats and may not necessarily equate to the previous slide. But the point we wanted to make with this slide was that the platform gives you the ability, there we go, to be able to break down what's happening in your business. So which business units are having the issues. We can see here, whenever this was run, a touchless ratio of 65%. So again, down from where we started, but we can see here that the majority of the invoices are against our AX businesses, so our retail businesses, and a very small amount against the M3 businesses. We can also see at supplier level kind of what's going on. Here, again, we've just kind of ordered by the number of invoices for a particular month. And again, you can see the touchless ratio kind of really varies. So that way we know which invoices are potentially causing us problems. And that helps us put together plans to find out, okay, what do we need to do with these suppliers? Do we need to train the OCR engine? Is it not picking up the right data? Do we have, as was often the case with a lot of trade suppliers, our price books just being completely out of date, and our buying and merchandising teams needing to actually speak to the suppliers and let them know that our purchase orders and our invoices just aren't matching. Speaking of deviations, down the bottom here as well, again, we have a breakdown of, we can see here, as I mentioned just then, the vast majority of the deviation which are out of tolerance are to do with these price changes. And then you have a couple of quantity deviations related to, again, maybe goods not being receipted correctly at the warehouse or not arriving at all. And then we can even go down to user level to see, okay, where are the bottlenecks in our process, who's sitting on invoices, who is taking a long time to approve or not coding things correctly in the first place, which is leading to delays and affecting our touchless ratios and anything else we're looking to measure through the system. So go back to the charts from before. Again, you can see our processing time, again, shooting way up. I think at its worst, we were talking about 30 days between invoices coming in and them actually being processed. One of the reasons for this was at year end, our AP team decided to reach out to our suppliers and do a little bit of a supplier amnesty. One thing we were finding was our suppliers weren't actually invoicing us. So I don't know how they were getting paid, but what happened around kind of November, December time was we suddenly got a huge influx of invoices, some dating back to 2018, 2019, which again hit our match rates, hit our processing time, That was quite an easy fix. Well, we could find what the problem was and work through that backlog. But there were other things, like I said, where we needed to go out to the other teams within the business and say, you need to update your price books. We need to figure out, again, are you the right person to be approving these invoices? Do we need to look at our approval matrix and approval limits to kind of streamline those parts of the process as well? And what you can see is our touchless rate from the beginning of the year has started to creep back up again, and our processing time has started to come back down. I think at the moment we're looking at 6 to 7 days processing time, down from 30. So again, massive improvement just through a bit of reporting and just speaking to the guys at Medius to say, okay, help us understand, what's going on, what might we want to do to try and resolve this. So what did we learn? One thing, definitely, we were trying to do too much too quickly. Again, our AP team and finance in general, so excited about the project. What they did after the initial pilot, rather than necessarily rolling out to one business area at a time, which I think would probably have been preferred, we went big bang. We went big bang with both PO and non-PO based for the entire business, which really, really put a strain on our change management process. There's only so many users you can train in that time, and we found our the trainer sessions just weren't really working. So we're putting in together some plans at the moment to do a little bit of retraining, updating our training materials, and just making it more of a push to say, right, we are going to start to enforce a little bit more the way purchase orders need to be raised now through Medius. And in terms of the coding of non-PO ones, who is going to be the responsible people in the business, just so that invoices aren't still sat, albeit digitally, with the same people. As well as putting PO and non-PO invoices live, as I mentioned before, we also put procurement live at the same time. And to, again, Medius's credit, the team we work with did advise we not do that. However, our finance team had other ideas. Luckily, they were proved, why that wasn't such a great idea. But now we're slowly clawing that back. We talked about the supplier amnesty, so we're going to maybe think twice about doing that, or maybe do it in a bit more of a managed way, instead of just giving our suppliers the email address that points directly to our APA inbox, and then have no control over this massive old data which wasn't necessarily even needed. We realised there was a greater need to engage, as well as the business, with our suppliers, just to let them know what was happening with our journey through AP automation. We needed to involve them a little bit more in the business change, just to ensure everything flowed through as we planned. Staff within the business, particularly in the finance team, they found a more natural move towards, instead of processing invoices manually in the ERPs, trying to correct the POs that were in either ERP, trying to get stuff to match. Again, not necessarily the right way to do things. So what, again, we're trying to move towards now is moving that function away from the AP team and back to the buying and merchandising teams, where it probably better belongs. This resulted in, again, processing bottle rates and reduction in our touchless rate, as we mentioned previously. And so, where are we now? So we've created, as Dimitri mentioned previously, a post-implementation project team. So I've come back on board as product owner again to tackle the issues highlighted, mostly internally, but again, speaking to Medius as and when we need to. We definitely have found the value in reporting through Medius directly to improve visibility of the bottlenecks within our processes. Dashboarding as well as reporting as well helps the teams monitor what's happening on a day-to-day basis, and helps them potentially spot issues before they grow into bigger problems. One thing we found as well is we'd set some blanket tolerances within the system, mostly copying some standard settings we had within our ERPs. That was something we realised we definitely needed to change. We had a 5% tolerance set on both header level, line level, and for any type of deviation. So we were having a lot of instances, for example, where we had agreed a trade discount with a supplier, for example, for a purchase order based trade invoice, where at header level it would match, but at line level it wouldn't because of those discounts. But the system was flagging every single one of those to the users just to say, hey, can you approve this variance? Well, we know it's going to be a price variance because of the discount. So again, working to kind of streamline those processes, just the kind of things we hadn't necessarily thought of as part of the original implementation. Because it was actually an issue previously, but what we hadn't realised was a lot of the AP's time was going into individual POs in the ERP, changing things around. There just wasn't visibility of what they were actually doing, either from finance as a whole or the rest of the business. Now we've got more clearly defined roles and responsibilities as a result of the exercises that we've been through with AP Automation. We're starting a more gradual rollout to our M3 users. A lot of our wholesale business, particularly fabrics, are based in Italy. So we've decided to concentrate on the UK operations for now, and we're at the moment having some of our team over in Italy to give them a bit of hand-holding with the new processes that we've implemented, trying to make, again, standardizations, so regardless of which ERP you're using, everything's managed the same way in APA. We're also taking advantage of the automatic coding, the artificial intelligence that Medius provides as well, particularly for our non-PO invoices when they do come in. The system's now at a point, having been live with it for a number of months, where it's starting to recognise patterns in the invoices that we are processing. So it's automatically suggesting the coding that the users need. Again, really improving or cutting down some of the manual steps that our users have to deal with. And again, making it no longer an AP issue to deal with these things. And then we've also commissioned a separate project, so outside of Medius, to look at issues in our PO raising processes as they are anyway. Why do we have issues with our buys? Why do we have incorrect POs going out? Unfortunately, we're not going to be putting any of our trade POs through Medius, only because we've got separate systems that generate that at the moment, separate project. But for anything else we are raising through Medius APA, our overhead invoices, making sure that our three-way match actually works the way it should do, because we've got good data from the start of the process. Okay, and I think that's it. That's our story.